Alright, so here's for the second part of phase 4. This one's for the Crystallize time mechanic, which is the final mechanic for this phase. This one is going to be, this guide will be a little bit like kind of rough to do like all the POVs for, because technically like 4 of the jobs or 3 of the jobs all resolve the same, but your candy you're picking up is just slightly different. That's really all. And then getting that actual job and having to like have a clean run is also another thing that's like can kind of be like a variable. So I won't show like all the perspectives. I think I'll go with probably just like 4 perspectives on this one, because there's not tons and tons you can really do, and there might not always be like a full survivability, but I at least want to get the movement down so that you can see how the movement goes and works for everyone. But so like starting off, I'm going to show one of the blue debuffs with a eruption, so that I can like go through the movement, because I think that's going to be the best way to handle this, is like to break down like the 4 critical movements, 4 or 5 critical movements. We'll see when we get further in the video, honestly. But starting off, we're going to be having like the Crystallize time. This does a fuck ton of damage, so do Mitt, and this damage does come from Oracle of Darkness, so you need to Mitt Oracle of Darkness if you have targeted Mitt. So you do need to target her for your Mitt. My big thing I say also is this is right after the Hand of Pain Akmorn. For the rest of the fight, pretend you're in a permanent Hand of Pain. Keep the bosses balanced. It will save your life, because there is literally a Hand of Pain check after this mechanic. And coming back in, you only have like 10 seconds to solve it. So our best solution was just keep the bosses balanced at all time. So keep these bosses within like a very easy Hand of Pain check, so that when you go into that final mechanic, you can easily just resolve it and not have to worry about the Hand of Pain being like, holy fuck, that one's so much higher than the other. Like, just completely ignore that. So for here, just keep it tabbed the entire game. And they're on top of each other, so you can cleave them. It's really easy. Just keep them balanced, because it will save your life in the long run. But starting off, we're going to go into here. My recommendation is stare at your toolbar, just like Ultimate Relativity. Chains are not out for hourglasses, as you can see yet, so you won't know like 100% what you are. The only thing that is like set in stone is that north-south will always be a yellow chain. So this is a true north mechanic, like for all strats that we do so far. So this is a true north mechanic. It's north-south is always yellow chains, and then the variable is going to be where the blue chain is. The blue chain is either going to tether northeast, southwest, or northwest, southeast. It'll be diagonal and across from each other, and that plays into like how the mechanic resolves. So going off right away, I have an Eruption. Eruption is the only unique blue debuff that is not with the group. If you have the other blue debuffs, which is on Despy, Io, and Astra, they all stack together. But for me, I have to F off. Eruption can't be in the group because they have obviously an AoE going off on them. So you go across from the group. You go to the northern blue hourglass. So what I do is I stare and I look for whichever one's going to be a blue tether. So you can see the blue tether is the northwest on this pattern. So I'm going to go to the northwest. Then I'm going to stand in this cubby. Also careful of these dragons. If you're a little slow, you can boop the snoot early. So you want to make sure you don't accidentally boop the snoot and kill yourself. This did happen once to us, and we learned the hard way. So careful of these dragons, and make sure you don't boop them on the way up here if you're slow. But when you're for the spot to stand in, you just want to stand like in this cubby right outside this line, because these lines are indicating where the hourglass's AoEs are going off. So this hourglass is in the middle of this circle, so it's going to cleave this. So you want to stay tucked in this corner. And you stay tucked in this corner because then you can see this resolves. You're going to see this is going to snapshot. And then you're also going to see the ice goes off at the same time. Right here, you're going to have ice, or you're going to have the boop of the snoot from that person, and the eruption goes off on me. And the big thing with this is you can see there's also the ice. You have the boop, the snoot, the ice, the eruption, and then you have the crystal fragment. Do not go towards the crystal fragment until after your eruption goes off. If you move towards her before, you will kill the crystal. You are able to go towards her before the snapshot of your eruption. So stay in this cubby until your debuff resolves. I also recommend staying in this corner regardless, because what's happening on the other side of the map, which we'll show later, is the party is being knocked towards you, and there's going to be a stack marker going off. So our goal is, with the stack marker going off, you're going to see all these players get knocked over here, and we always aim for the intercard to resolve our stack marker, because if the stack marker hits the fate crystal, it will wipe the mechanic. So we always aim for that enter card. Then you go underneath the crystal and you get ready to dodge Exa waves. These Exa waves will always start first east to west and then north or south. So it's either east or west, then north or south. So you go up here, you go up to the north really quick, and you wait, and you want to get ready to dodge the second Exa. So my recommendation here is I have to go pick up a cleanse puddle from the people who are booping the snoot. We have a prio. So looking north to south, I set myself a little cheat sheet in the bottom left corner. We would have our stack marker always go for the what's it called? The puddle at the B marker, which is yellow. So yellow for spread is why they did that. Then we have the water, which the water should be booped around the 3 marker, so blue for water. And then we have the purple candy is going to be around the 4 marker, so that the purple candy is for the spread marker. And then the blizzard is just going to be the odd one. So the blizzard is over at the delta marker. It's the odd one out. But I made this relative of me looking north to south. So this is my little cheat sheet here over on the right side. So we have the stack, water, spread, blizzard. So for this movement, what I recommend is I know I have to get to the candy in my front right. That's what I do. I really didn't go off the color coding, even though I know it's the 4 marker, but I would go off how this would go off. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make it as south as possible first, then focus on making east or west movement. So first get as south as possible, because what happens is if you get a curse pattern where the second Exa wave starts at north, you need to get back up to the north half of the map. So you want to be able to get back as quickly as possible. Now, if you get where the second Exa starts at south, it's easy peasy. But on a pattern where it's north, this can really screw you over. So one thing to notate, it was what these waves are doing on the edge of these arenas is Arena's placing her rewinds for the knockback mechanics. And wherever the 2 origins of her Exas start at is where you're gonna have to place your rewind later in this mechanic. So you do want to notate this. So we do know that it's going to be on the west half of the map, and then when we see the second Exa, we know that it's going to be either on the south or north, and then we could call out the numerical marker we're going to be resolving our rewinds at. So like this is stuff you notate as it's going down. But now for movement. So I know my candy once again is at the 4 marker. So I'm going to book it from north to south. You can see the snapshotting for the final hourglasses is going off around the same time that you're seeing the indicator for the second Exa wave. So we'll start booking it south right here. And your goal is to make as much distance south as possible and then cross over into the Exa. Because once you cross over into the Exa, you can book it for that candy that's down here. Then I grab my candy and I wait for this Exa. So we know we have a west Exa and a south Exa. So we know that our resolution is now going to be the 4 for the rewind, but I have my candy. The big thing to notate with these Exas is they move in quarters of the map. Like 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. There's 4 Exas per lane. So they cover exactly like north to south. Like exactly half the map right here. So the second Exa is covering exactly the second half. So using this knowledge can make the Exa waves significantly easier to dodge. So like if you're in a very bad pattern, you can kind of wait for that quadrant to go off first. So once again, I make it as south as possible. I see my candy, I grab my candy, I wait right outside the Exa. So as soon as the snapshot fades, I can step over now into it. Then we know that 4 is where I'm placing my rewind. So I'm already here. I have a very easy pattern. And the way this works with placing rewinds is you need tanks to take the wild charges, and you need the DPS parties to be able to be behind them. And it's also wild charges on 4 players, as well as a wild charge on the first in line. So to do this, it's honestly a very easy resolution. You'll always have these 2 globes right in between the intercardinal, that is our number. The tank will stand kind of in the middle of the globe, like where this X is at on the globe, on both sides. So like group 1 left looking at the corner, group 2 right looking at the corner. So the tank will try to place their rewind right there. And then supports will place, or not supports, but the not tanks will place their rewind slightly outside, like so kind of shifted to where I'm at right now. So I know where I'm supposed to place my rewind, which is like right outside the globe. Like I'm not perfect, does not have to be a perfect mechanic. It just like, you do have like start risking when you start getting too far south, because when you get knocked back, you might almost go into the wall. And then you also might change like the orders of like people. So you can play a little safe. But placing your rewind like this, you can see that we have the tanks leading the pack. So when the north wave hits, when the north wave comes down, it will hit the tank. It will hit the tank and the party. So it should put a Vuln stack on these 4 players. And then when we get knocked down to the east half of the map, we'll then get knocked up from south to north. And then from south to north, you can see the first 4 players in line is Tsubaki and then us 3 players right here. The big thing to notate is these wild charges, for some reason, like the magic vulnerability is actually kind of jank. So if you have shields and 30% mits going into this like mechanic, it actually benefits you. So once we place our rewind, Gaia in the middle of the arena, as you can see, has appeared. She is casting a Spirit Taker. The Spirit Taker, depending on where it is, can be a bitch of a mechanic. So as soon as you place your rewind, you need to fan the fuck out, because you can see Gaia is casting a Spirit Taker. I had smudge, so I use that to my privilege to smudge away and then loosely spread. We basically want to do like an X on the map. We don't want to get, we do an X on the map because we don't want to hit ordinals. And we don't hit ordinals because of the light crystal at A. So if you get a northern pattern, you can see the fragment is on the north. And if she hits that, she wipes, you fail the mechanic. So we just always went for making like an X on the map. So we fan out all over the place and try to keep our away from like the ordinals. Since we know the pattern, we don't really care too much on this one. But we'll fan out because the big gimmick of this is it might kill one other player if you don't spread equally. And then the second gimmick is that the Fragment of Fate will die if you get hit with the Spirit Taker on it. So always want to keep the Spirit Takers away from those. So movement players should use this to like their advantage to fuck off really quickly. And then because overall, like the Spirit Taker does do a little bit of damage, so you do want to spot check that one player right before we get rewound. But the huge gimmick is literally accidentally spreading on top of the fucking Fragment of Fate, because that does happen. And we do wipe the raid doing that. Like, we then cannot get continue the final phase if it's destroyed. So upon the Spirit Taker going off, you can then pop whatever mitts and shields you have. And then if you can get 30% mitts, you can gimmick this whole mechanic where as long as the tanks are ahead of the party taking the tank wild charges, the party can actually survive party-sided magic vulns with 30% mitt, full HP, and shields. We don't really ever use that to our advantage. It does happen naturally sometimes, but it's not all the time. So then we get knocked back here twice, and you can see we barely survive. And like the whole way this works, if it's resolved properly, is these 4 will get hit by the first 4. So you should see Rain, Despy, Astra, Io all get it. Witch, Rain, Despy, Io, Astra all get it. And then the second 4 players will get a Magic Vuln. And then boom, 4 Magic Vulns. So we have all the 4 Magic Vulns. Or well, 8 Magic Vulns in this case. Then after this, we'll want to break into north-south. Again, because this is the Akmorn. This is why I recommended that you always keep the bosses at HP check before you go into Crystallize. Because let's say you fucking focus Gaia and now she's at 1% and Frost is at 16%. You now are probably going to wipe because this is a final Hand of Pain check. This is like the FU mechanic. Because you can point 1 the bosses here and they have to finish this Hand of Pain. They have to finish this Hand of Pain from what I've seen. So this is a big check just to go, like, screw you over. Because we have had 0.1s on this, and they finish the Hand of Pain. Like, obviously, if they're both 0.1, the Hand of Pain is the freest thing in the world. But that's why I recommend, like, in a scenario, is you keep them balanced the entire time. So now here, you can keep them balanced. You do the same thing. This one will do a lot of damage because we have less mitts on it. And then you stack middle. And we just keep tabbing. And then the bosses are very easy to kill. With Pictomancer especially, the Pictomancer has so much fucking natural cleave. This DPS check is nothing. So just carry stuff over to the final phase. But that is it for doing this Eruption. Now we'll go back and explain some of the other roles, but that's a whole breakdown of it. So the next few, like previous guides, will be faster because I will just be breaking down that one instead of the entire mechanic. Alright, now we're going to go into one of the redhead debuffs. One of the redhead debuffs is going to be kind of like very straightforward. So like one of the big things like with Crystallized Time is your mechanics either start busy or finish busy. So like as you saw in the Dark Eruption, the Dark Eruption was started like very slow and then got busy, while now the reds start busy and then get slow. Like still it's not obviously super slow, but you don't have to worry about like picking up your candies and all that because the red debuffs are the ones who are placing the candies. So going into this is where you got to start having a prio system. So for the red debuffs, they are randomized, and you need to have flexes. We always sent DPS east and supports west. And then if it doubled down, the DPS would flex. So for here, me and Finn have the ice debuff, therefore Finn would flex to me and go to the west, like adjacent, like completely opposite of me. So it's exactly like mirrored. So our motions are kind of mirrored in a way. Now for how this works is you kind of have this ring on the floor right here. And this ring is actually the road by which the dragon heads travel, going in a circle from north to south. And then for the support will be mirrored of me, so you can kind of use this as a reference point to what's going on the support side of the map. It just like depends on what's being blue tethered first, because the blue tether is where your next movement goes. So like right here, you can see that the blue chain is to my right, so I know my movement's going to be to my right. So I know my movement's going to be to my right later. Another like little piece of small advice that you can give is if you're wherever is the blue chain, and if you don't have this stack to your left, like there's actually like what I want to say, like what, there's 5 players over there. Yeah, there's 5 players in that corner right now, or 4 players in that corner right now. There's 4 players in that corner right now. And if the group of stack of players happens to be to your left or right relative, like in the south part of the map, you can kind of know that that's where you're going to be dodging later. Since I don't have a stack of players like to my left right now, I know that the stack of players is going to get blown to my right, where Io is currently at. That's also another way to identify it, is like if there's a player to your north side of the map when you're in ice, you know that you're going to be going there later. So like on the mirrored side, there's nobody on the top left corner of the map, because Io is like the person who's kind of like spread out with the eruption. So going off of this, if you don't have a player on your north half, the ice will dodge south. But if you do have a player on your north half, like Io, I will be dodging towards Io, because I'll be helping to resolve these stack markers. Because just like Ultimate Relativity, stack waters check for 4 body, and stack markers check for 5 bodies. So, or else they give a mortality debuff. So for here, I will be staying on this road, and you want to stay directly east or west, like on this line, because you want to boop the snoot. Because this dragon is now going to be booping the snoot. You can see the first hourglass has gone off. I'm going to boop this snoot, and the second I boop the snoot will be the same time that the ice will go off. Basically the same time. And as soon as my ice debuff goes off, I need to go meet the party. And I need to go meet the party because I need to take this stack marker with the party. Something you can also see is when I'm sending myself north here. When I'm sending myself north here, you can see that the snapshot from the second hourglass is going off at the second time. And this is another reason why you have to do a dodge here. So on the other side, you can tell that the player cannot dodge north because the hourglass on the north half is being contested. Therefore, they need to dodge south. So with doing this, we take the stack marker. We want to make sure you always take it away from the fate, the fragment of fate. And with taking the stack marker, we will then be able to dodge back up to the north, and we have very similar movements. Now, I don't have to give a shit about the candies, but what I can't do is I cannot run into any of the candies, any of them at all. If I touch a candy, I will steal in someone else's stack. So we know relatively where all the candies are at, so we do not want to be touching these. So I'm just on survival instinct without touching candies. I'm keeping track of where the X's are going so I can be a helpful call out, because reds have the easier job here. So we already know that the first one started at the east and the next one starting at the south. So then we know our 3 marker is where we got to place our rewinds later. So once again, this is where I know I won't be able to make it to get to this Exa in time. So I just chill and I wait right at the top half of the map. Because since they resolve in quarters, I can then dodge into this. So I wait and I dodge into this, and I know exactly what I'm aiming for is I'm aiming for this globe on the left side of the intercardinal marker, because you have the 2 globes. So I'm aiming on the outside of the globe, on the left globe of the intercardinal marker, wall relative, looking at the wall. So I place my rewind, I then immediately smudge away, and I try to get as far as I can because you have the Spirit Taker. This is where once again I'm smudging towards the fragment, so I want to make sure I don't go towards the fragment. Then you hear the Spirit Taker go off, shields emit, and let the mechanic resolve. Something also you can notate is both of our tanks have a damage down, and the way to like really help this, since the damage down is going to go into the final mechanic, you can't sack your tanks yet because of the whole Akmorn and Hand of Pain effect, so you need to resolve that mechanic first. So what we do here is we allow our tanks to we go through this entire mechanic, and the second the Akmorns go off, like the Mornifal goes off, our tanks will immediately go wall, and then we hold our DPS, because this check is super, super easy. So we hold our DPS here and let our tanks wall, and then we'll get the reses off before we kill. So they coordinated their reses on who they're resing, and then they get the reses going out, and the bosses die. So now they can both get up for final phase. This is what I recommend going into this, so that if you do happen to have tanks with DDs, because other party members, like, you really don't want to wall because you don't want to make the heal check harder for your healers. Tanks can't wall early because they are the ones being targeted. So this is like the best like option if you have both your tanks with a DD. But yeah, that's quite literally all it is. All there is to it. Okay, so I do want to show this movement in case you're not meeting up with the group. This is the one where you can see there's a bunch of group members to your left. So you know that you're going to be dodging over here because there's also no one to your right at the north side. So you know that the bad hourglass is going to be to your right. You can also just check by like actually looking at the blue that comes from it when you're in position. Like for here, I go here, I get there, then the chains go out, and I know that the blue tether's to my left. So this is where I'm going to go first, because blue tether is where is the last hourglass to go off. So I want to dodge towards the blue tether. But I wanted to show this movement because this movement's really important. As this movement you will literally be able to kill yourself from the second dragons, because the boop of the snoot will be happening or near you. So this movement needs to be very safe. So as soon as you boop the snoot, you need to book it left, and you need to book it as to the ordinal as possible. So as soon as your hourglass resolves, you can send it north, because you're going to see a boop happening behind me right here. And if you don't want to get hit by that boop barely like clips down over here. So if they get a fast boop, it'll clip just like slightly over the ordinal. So as long as you cross as soon as the hourglass fades, like the AoE snapshot right here fades, you'll always be safe. Like this was a kind of a slower boop, but if the faster boops do happen, this is very safe movement. Always, always, always just back up to the wall. As soon as the AoE fades, run north as fast as possible, hugging the wall, because those are circle AoEs, so it's better to be as far from that AoE as possible. And then trace the wall and rejoin the group up north on this pattern. Alright, so now this is going to be for one of the other debuffs. This is going to be for the blue ones. This is going to be for pretty much the movement for all the blues that are not the eruption. You can kind of bundle these together because they all have very similar movement. They're just, the puddle order is just different, but they all resolve the same. So like here you can see I have a stack marker, and this is where you want to kind of like identify what your debuff is, so you can get, you know, what candy to grab later, just to make it easier. But my movement can be applicable to the blue debuff, the stack marker with the blue debuff, the ice blue debuff, and the water debuff, because all of these are going to be in the same. And what they do is they are going opposite of the eruption. They're going to the blue tether on the south side of the map, because they need to be able to get knocked across the map to meet up with the eruption. So we'll go on here, southwest. We'll tuck into this corner because we gotta wait for the hourglass to resolve. Once the hourglass resolves, we want to put our wind right in the middle of this pedal, because with the wind being right in front of this pedal, we'll get knocked directly across. So you want to make sure you're like kind of in between this player and the other intercardinal on their side, so when you get knocked back, you will get knocked back to that inner cardinal right there, and you won't have to worry about the stack marker, because if you get knocked wide, your stack marker might hit the crystal. If you get knocked the other way, you might take the stack marker by yourself, or only clip a few people, and then you get a mortality with the 90% damage down. So this is something to be like really like aware of and stuff. But you can see that I get knocked across the arena. Always aim for that intercardinal, because the intercardinal is just safe. As soon as the stack marker goes off, you go north, and then it's the usual. It's the usual of grabbing candies. Now this is the pattern actually where you don't have to make it as south as possible, because you got the easy candy. My candy is away from the X's, so this is easy as heck for me. I can just full send it into this candy. So as soon as this hourglass goes off, I can just book it from my candy. I don't need to make it as south as possible because I got the easy one. Now if my candy was the one in the opposite side, for example, I would want to wait for the Exa and then go east. So if my candy was the one over here because I was a blizzard, I would make it to the south arena first, the middle of the arena, and then do like a 90-degree angle straight for this candy. There is also the gamer dodge, like what you can see what Rain does, but I really don't recommend that, because that means you have to keep track of the hourglasses. And if you don't want to keep track of the hourglasses, you can just do that. You can just wait. It's just better to stick north, go south as possible, then cut across and do like a right angle. But after grabbing my candy, once again, we know that the pattern is going to be 4 because of the 2 Exas. and I place mine at the bottom of the left globe. And that does rewinds for this mechanic. So on to the next one. All right, so for the last debuff, which would be wind, this is the last debuff for all of them that we can go over. And then pretty much you have all the movement down. Wind is only slightly different depending on whether you're with the group or not. So here I can already tell if I care. If I do care, you don't have to like check the. Honestly, as a wind, you don't have to check where the hourglass is at. The party will kind of come to you. So I just always go to this corner because that's where I'm supposed to go. And then you can see my DPS. I'm the lowest in the flex prio. So you can see that Astra flex for me because I'm the lowest in the prio. I never flex. And then I know I'm not on the group side. So what happens on the group side is you do not want to hit the party with the wind. So when this hourglass goes off, north-south hourglass goes off, just stay put and let your wind resolve like near this area. Because what happens if you're a DPS with the wind, I won't really go grab a perspective of this because I honestly don't know when wind's the last time I've got this perspective. But when you have a wind, you want to stand directly in the middle of like these two petals, like right where my wind debuff is currently at. You want to stand directly there so you knock your party across and you just stay next to the wall. And then your party will stand slightly in front of you. And this will send your party straight across. So I recommend that you wait as a wind. If you don't have the party with you, you wait for your debuff to go off, then you cross. So as soon as you cross, now you're able to get to this safe zone and you don't accidentally win the party. Now for this, once you're in this like safe quadrant, because you want to be in this like little V, this little like V shape right here, so that you don't get hit by the hourglasses, as soon as the second hourglass goes off, you want to run in and boop the snoot. And the way to be successful with booping the snoot as soon as the second hourglass goes off is to have a head-on collision with it. We call it booping the snoot because if you run into it from like the side or something, you will probably miss the hitbox because the hitbox for it is actually in front of it. And once again, I told you, it travels down this road right here, this like road. So get onto this road and have a head-on collision with it. And then you'll be a lot more successful in booping the snoot. Just have a full head-on collision with it. So as soon as it fades, I get into the road and I have a head-on collision with it, boop the snoot. Then you can return south and try to resolve your Exas. Another thing to also notate is try to go straight south after booping the snoot. Because if you curve radially like straight to the south, the other player might have booped their snoot slower and you could get killed. Because you're both booping your snoot around the same time. But if they boop their snoot slower, like we both boop them at the same time, but if this one's slower and I'm traveling straight back south, I might get clipped. So my recommendation is going straight south and then going back to like straight south, like south direction, and then going to the south ordinal. So I go straight south first and then I cut back over. And this is just for full safety strats in case the booping the snoot is slow. And then now your goal is just to get to the rewind area without touching anybody's candy. But that's legitimately all the movement. And then other than that, that's it. That's how you do all of the mechanics, like for this phase. That's how you do all the booping of the snoots and everything. Very, 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 very straightforward.
Pain shall be fleeting, joy everlasting. As I wish it, so shall the river of time flow.
Who? Red? Oh, shit. Oh, God. Sorry. Flex, I was gonna be. Focus. I remember I pushed the light.
Extra's gonna buy it. Oh, no.
Pain shall be fleeting, joy everlasting. As I wish it, so shall the river of time flow.
big deal when we come back.
Poke your boss and do your mid.
Oh, it died.
Oh.
Pain shall be fleeting, joy everlasting. As I wish it, so shall the river of time flow.
One.
Stack on Destiny for life party too.
Pain shall be fleeting, joy
Keep tabbing. Keep them
everlasting.
balanced.
As I wish it, so shall the river of time flow.
Four. Spread. Good shit, guys. Good shit.
Looks good.
Watch your speed on Warclaws.
North south.
Pain shall be fleeting, joy everlasting. As I wish it, so shall the river of time flow.
Three.
Let's go.
Same thing as last time. We just had the tanks all late.
Deja vu?
Or south.
Light and darkness.
Frost. Stack.
Sure these stacks. They're even. They're a little high to use damage on each other's side. They're fine. There's some.
Where are you getting?
Are you both up? Okay.
You endure. Another approach then.
Yeah, they're good. Just give rain.
Yours and you are mine.
Good job. We've done this before. Rain and Tsubaki is pot